Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Alyssa Fader. I am the training director here at Emily's List. Really excited to be talking to you all today about virtual events. I wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to what Emily's List does and the trainings that we run here, and then we'll jump right into it. So Emily's List was founded in 1985. We are the largest resource for women in politics. We help recruit and train women who are pro-choice Democratic candidates up and down the ballot at any level. Since our founding, we've helped elect over 100 women to the House, 26 to the Senate, 16 governors, and nearly 1,100 women to state and local office. And we've also had 50,000 women plus reach out to us about being interested in learning what they need to do to run for office, including many of you. So we are really excited to be able to provide you with this training as well as a slew of other resources to make sure that you have the tools that you need to be successful in your race for office. We know there's a lot going on right now, and we really appreciate you all taking the time to learn with us, and really appreciate you all being so interested in how you can transition your campaign and the tactics that you're using during this time. So I'm going to bring us through the beginning of this training. We have some very special guests today, and I will introduce them as we go through. So to start off, what is Emily's List? So like I said, we elect pro-choice Democratic women. We've been doing it for a long time. And part of what we do is provide these kinds of trainings and other forms of support to candidates and to people who are interested in becoming candidates in the future. So again, thank you all for joining us. We're happy to have you here. So let's go through today's agenda. We're going to do welcome and housekeeping. That's what we're doing now. We're going to do an introduction to virtual events, talk through different best practices. Then we'll talk about digital fundraisers. We'll have a question and answer break. We'll talk about different digital technology that you can use. There are a lot of platforms that you can use for digital events. We'll focus on a few. We'll have another question and answer break, and then we're going to do some key takeaways. So let's jump into it. So first, let's hear from you. What were some events that you were supposed to be holding right now or attending right now, or wish you could hold right now, but you can't because of everything that's going on? Fundraisers, house parties, canvases, yep, GOTV, yep, all true. Yeah, so there are a lot of limitations that are currently in place because of the crisis, and we are here to help provide some best practices and some suggestions for dealing with those challenges. We won't be able to get to everything. I'm sure that there will be questions outstanding, but we will have question and answer breaks, and we will have opportunities for you to continue to engage and learn with us. So again, thank you all for participating. I see this as a very active group today, and I love that. So some norms as we begin. So the first is invest in our time together. You all are already doing this. You're already typing in the questions box, the chat box, talking about your experiences right now. We will have some more interactive pieces like that throughout the training, so please continue to participate in them. Second, all questions are valid. Type them in the text box as well. We'll have specific question and answer periods in this webinar, but you can type them throughout the training to when a question comes to your head if you'd like. And the last is that these slides are internal. We will send you a recording of the webinar after this training. So we're going to get into some technicals around tech later today, as well as some other best practices. All of this will be recorded and sent to you after the fact. So don't worry if you miss something in your notes. You'll get this recording because you've registered for this training. So here are our webinar goals. Understand how to use digital tools to have virtual events. Learn some of the best practices for event content and facilitation. And then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of managing different digital tools. So again, we'll be talking about a few major ones, but there's lots of tools that are out there for you to use. So let's jump into Introduction to Virtual Events. Some of you already talked about this in the chat box, but you want to hold a town hall, you want to have an organizing event with your volunteers, like a house party or a phone bank, you want to have fundraising events. All of these are things you can convert to digital. And That isn't to say that they don't have to be done differently, but they definitely can be things that you move to a digital platform and presence. At the same time, we want to be honest. Running events online is different. There are a few ways that I thought of as to how, such as the screen creates more distance between you and participants. It doesn't feel like you have as much of an in-person human connection when there's a screen between you. You're probably feeling that now, but hello. There's more distractions. So there's the whole internet out there. People have kids running around. People have partners on phone calls across the house. You can't build in-person relationships. Those are things that are really important aspects of having the events that make them really successful in ways that are not necessarily as tangible online. And the reason it's important to think about these things is because you can build out your agenda and your program for your virtual event to help address some of these challenges. So I'm curious for other folks, what are other challenges that you have seen or experienced in having these virtual events? So yes, you can't serve food. So that is a thing that is a draw for people and also helps create a sense of community for sure. Tech quality, always, yes. I like this. Someone has pets running around, but you can make the pet the star. Yes, if you have a dog, please bring your dog. Lots of tech stuff. Yes. So yeah. So you can't talk to people individually. Great. So these are all challenges that exist around tech. And what you can do in designing your event virtually is really start to address some of those challenges. And we're going to talk about how to do that. Digital can still create strong events, but the goal is the thing is you have to plan. So think about, what is the goal of this event? If the goal of this event is to build connections between some of your volunteers, how is it that you can make your event be reflective of that? Is it that you use different pieces of technology to put people into digital rooms together? Is it that you have people kind of exchange phone numbers and text each other after the event? There's all sorts of ways in which you can modify what you're talking about to get at those goals, but you need to be extremely clear about what those goals are. How does your agenda reflect the goals and the platform? So we'll talk about all the different platforms later, but if your goal is to have a report back on what you are seeing in the community right now, and it doesn't have to be super interactive, then having a Facebook Live event might be a good might be a good goal for you. If you want something that is more of a fundraising event, you probably want some amount of interaction in there, because that's part of what fundraising events are able to provide to the people who buy into them. So you want to make sure that your agenda is reflective of the goals and the platform that you're using. How does your program ensure capturing the attention of attendees on a busy internet? So as you can see right now, I'm asking you a lot of questions. Part of the reason that I'm doing that is because I'm trying to model for you ways in which I can continue to have you feel like you are a part of this webinar, which you are. I am reading what you say. And also it means that we're kind of having a continuous conversation instead of me just lecturing at you. You can replicate that in all of your events. And the last is, how will you know if the event is a success? So for some of you, it will be a fundraising event. And so knowing if the event is successful has a very specific monetary amount that should come with it. For others, you are trying to do text banking. You're trying to build relationships between volunteers. You're trying to get your name out. All of those are important parts of your goal setting for any particular event. This does also apply to offline events as well. But making sure you know how you will know if your event is successful, and building your program around that will make sure that you are really ensuring that you're using the internet to the best of its capacity, rather than having it be a hindrance. So here's a great example of a digital event. So this is candidate Sarah Crawford. She had a thank you virtual coffee. She took this screenshot. This is on Zoom. We'll talk about Zoom later. And she tweeted it out. So this is a great example because she not only brought some of her base supporters together, she also shared it with the rest of the people who are in her community online. She made sure that people knew that other people were volunteering, that there were still opportunities to get involved and engaged, and showed them, sent them a link. Let's see if I can send them a link here in the social media, in the Twitter post rather, so they could continue to be part of her campaign. So creating opportunities for people to get involved and engaged. People are really interested in figuring out how they can help right now. Take advantage of that in your digital events. And digital events are a tool in your digital toolbox. So we did a digital webinar last week, which some of you were probably on, that we can also make that information available to you. And there are further digital resources at Emily's List that we can share with you. But the main thing is that to emphasize here is that digital events are a tool in your digital toolbox. So they're about meeting people where they are, they're online, bringing what you already plan to do in your campaign online. And one of the benefits, there are a few benefits actually. One is that there's no geographical limitations on who can attend or speak at events. So let's say you have a really interesting friend who lives somewhere across the country who you think actually has something to contribute to your community. Maybe they're a small business owner, like for this event that Jackie Gordon was putting on, or maybe they are an epidemiologist and you want to have them on your call. Rather than flying them all the way across the country, you can have a much broader base of people who are actually able to attend or speak at the events, and you can really take advantage of that to get a broader audience. The other thing is that they can be built out really quickly. So instead of having to find a venue and have long-term registration processes, people are pretty fast at registering for online events. We just sent this out and you are all here, all 270 of you right now. And that is something that can happen online. You can have a much shorter runway. So those are some best practices about events in general. Like I said, I'll be back to help facilitate some questions and answers in just a bit. But for now, I want to turn it over to our first special guest, who is Kiana McKenzie, who is the Director for State and Local Fundraising here at Emily's List. And I will see all of you in a few minutes.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Kiana McKenzie. I am the Director of State and Local Fundraising at Emily's List, and I'm super happy to be here to help you walk through virtual fundraising events. I know a lot of you have questions about it, particularly as we see campaigns move their operations online, and we're happy to give you some tips and tricks about how to make these things work. So, I mean, again, we're taking things digital. So again, as Alyssa just mentioned, the great thing about virtual fundraising events is that the timeline is significantly shortened. So generally, we tell folks to wait to have about 6 to 8 weeks to plan an event that allows you to build a host committee, that allows you to get out your invitations either digitally or in the mail, to follow up on venue, catering, etc. Just a lot of time to put things together. But again, with the virtual event, a lot of those things are not on the table. And so we have found that anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks has been fine with planning an event. It really just depends on the amount of time you need to market your event and sort of who you might be able to get to be on the event. So there are no geographical limitations on having a surrogate or an attendee. Again, when you have those events in person, you might have a really good friend who's in California who can't attend because of a geographical limitation. But with things online, you can now sort of invite your entire network to these events and have them hear more about your campaign, how they can assist, and how you'll be a change in the legislature or whatever level of office that you'll be running for. Host committees are still encouraged. So host committees in an ideal world account for about 80% of the money that you will raise for your event. And so by using a host committee, you are really making sure that your campaign will raise the money that it needs to raise for an event, and that everybody who attends, in some ways I like to refer to as icing on the cake, right? So you have this goal for an event, say it's $3,000. If you bring in, you know, $2,600 with your host committee, and then you have other folks who attend the event at the lower price point, then you're certain to hit your goals, and it makes all of your guests, all of your events more successful. And the thing that we're seeing right now across the country are people getting really creative with event ideas. Again, we have that limitation about cost generally with in-person events. We try to minimize it as much as possible with in-kinds and things of that nature. But your creativity is a little bit shortened, I guess, because you don't want to spend more money to get folks there, right? But you can get more creative with these on-person or these online events. I've seen cooking demonstrations, I've seen panel discussions. I mean, just really think about some of the things that your supporters would like to know, learn, listen, all those kinds of things, and really, get creative with the kinds of things that you're putting together. I see a question of what's a host committee, right? So a host committee is a group of people who have decided to raise and or donate a specific amount of money. So typically when you're putting together an event, you're going to have people who attend as a friend maybe, and that's a certain price point. And then you'll have a host committee. So those folks will come in at a slightly higher price point. Whether say, if it's $150, they'll either get 3 people there at $50 a piece, or they'll write a check for $150, and that's their commitment to your event. And so ultimately what you want to do for your events is put together a list of people who will support it, whether they can attend or not. And that's, again, how you guarantee success of these particular events. So the plan for success, choose a theme, and if possible, a special guest for the event. Again, without these geographical limitations, we are finding that the sky is kind of the limit sometimes with these surrogates. People are really excited to hear about or to hear from issue experts and things of that nature. So if you're running for school board and there's someone that you can get on who can talk about the future of education and people are really interested in that, that's a good place to go, right? And so you want to make sure that you are thinking through who can attract folks to your online event, what'll set you apart, and then think through what are the natural hosts for this particular event. Who has a network of folks that they can bring together to attend my event, to be supportive, things of that nature. You want to make sure you create an event page with a link for giving and also for questions. So we have found that some folks really enjoy a question and answer period on these like online events. And sometimes it's a little difficult to manage when questions are live because you can't really tell who's going to talk first and things of that nature. And so usually what we would tell folks is to kind of get them on beforehand. That way you can make sure questions are addressed. You all can really pay attention to the time limitations and things of that nature. Again, as I mentioned, the timeline for events is shortened, but you do want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to properly market your event. So we like to say that you should create and send your digital invitation at least twice and try to follow up on the phone if possible. One of the reasons we say that is because you don't open every email that you receive, and neither will your supporters, right? And so you want to make sure that they have at least a couple of opportunities to see your invitation and decide whether or not it's an event that they want to or can attend and be supportive of your campaign. Another thing you want to do is make sure you prep all the speakers. And so make sure they have your bio, make sure you have their bios, make sure everybody has an understanding of what the program is going to be. Because again, if you're not in the same room, you want to make sure that everything can still flow professionally, even if you, again, have this distance of a screen. So here's an example of an invitation for a digital event. Again, what you want to do is you want to make sure you create something digitally, you're sending it out through email. These are not things that you are going to be sending through the mail, but you'll have a virtual house party, for example. I think some of you mentioned wanting to still hold house parties. On here, we have a special guest, Karen DeFilippi, who works in our federal and gubernatorial's office. And then you'll see Zoom link upon RSVP. So again, for fundraising events, the really big deal is you want to raise funds, right? And it's a lot easier to do so if folks are RSVPing ahead of time, if they're already making a contribution to your campaign and then receiving the Zoom link. For house parties or fundraisers where you plan to do call time afterwards, you can send the link, but you want to make sure that you have a way to follow up with people. So there should be some sort of form where people are giving you their information so that you can continue to follow up and keep them engaged in your campaign. And then again, as I mentioned, the lovely host committee, right? So along the bottom of this screen, It tells you who the event is sponsored by, and these are the folks who have committed to helping get people in the room for this event, in the room in quotation marks, for the event, to make certain contributions to this candidate to ensure success of the event. So another great thing about events is that, or online events, is that they have a short timeline, right? So generally we find that you should only plan for a 1 hour event. So you should expect your attendees to be on there about an hour. For hosts, we recommend closer to an hour 15, an hour and a half, so that they can greet their people as they're getting online in a host event. Like, again, you still want to make this a very friendly event, right? And so you want to make sure that your host can greet the people that they've invited, and really sort of create this engaging atmosphere, even though you are separated by a screen. And then again, this is the great thing about online events, is that if you have a special guest, you're really only asking for 15 to 20 minutes of their time. You're asking them to pop on, potentially talk for about 10 minutes, maybe take questions for about 5, and then say goodbye. And so that really helps in terms of figuring out who can we get for a particular event, how much of their time will it take, what is sort of the expectation for those folks. And so we found that generally that 15 to 20 minute timeline for them really works. And again, test the chosen digital platform several times. Before we did this webinar today, we've practiced 4 times. And we do that because we want to make sure that there aren't technical difficulties, that the audio does work, that the PowerPoint is seen, that I even have good lighting. And I'm telling you now, I had to move a screen and a lamp and everything to make sure that happened, right? And so you want to make sure that you take the opportunity to really get those things in order before you invite other folks into the space. And then I don't want folks to forget this, but even though things are digital and it's somewhat more casual because you don't have to come into another space and you don't maybe have to get super fancy to do so, you still want to make sure you send a thank you. I think we can all acknowledge that these are very different times for us, right? And the people who are supporting your events are literally reaching in because they really believe that you will be the kind of leader that we need, right? That you will be transparent and responsive and really prioritize the issues and things that they care about. And so I think it is ultimately super important to make sure that you send a thank you. That thank you obviously can be digital or it can be in the mail. It's your choice. But you want to make sure that a thank you is sent. I actually think I would prefer something in the mail because, again, we don't have lots of interactions with folks. But again, you just want to make sure you send a thank you. Next slide. So here's a sample program. So ultimately what you have is a host welcome and an introduction. So you want those folks, again, to be online, to be ready to greet the folks as they're coming on. Again, welcoming to their event, very much like we did though through the chat box on the way in, like our event's gonna get started soon, welcome, so happy to see you here, et cetera, et cetera. You wanna acknowledge the host committee. Again, these are the folks who are helping you build for this event. I think this is super important because your host committee is opening up their network to you to help you get more support, to help you get in front of other people. And so you want to make sure that you are acknowledging sort of their assistance in building the successful event. You would then introduce your special guest if you have one. Again, that short Q&A. And if you get those questions beforehand, it really helps to help things to move more swiftly and more smoothly. And then ultimately you hope that somebody, either the special guest or the host, could introduce the candidate to really give that short bio about what the candidate stands for. The candidate would then speak, hopefully do another Q&A session, particularly if they're with folks who are brand new to their campaign and maybe don't know all of the things that you stand for. And then a closing remark from the host as well. And to direct to online giving if that's not something that you required for the initial link. So ultimately, you want folks to feel, you want folks to be able to go to your designated link and contribute to your campaign and help you be successful this fall. And what we found again is the event is only the beginning. So these events further establish a rapport with your donors and supporters. Like this is a time that you can update them on what's happening, update them on the status of your campaign, how things are moving and switching and things of that nature. Really check in not only on them and how they're doing during this difficult time, but also just generally on how things are going as we're socially distant and things of that nature. You can give an update before or after the event. So again, if you're asking people to RSVP before getting the link, that's a different story. But if it's someone who is just coming to the event with an open link, then you want to make sure you can follow up and have a conversation with them about things. Ultimately, you want to go into this program thinking about the outcome that you want to have from it. So if you're thinking about holding these events regularly, start to build out a schedule of what that looks like. Is there a theme? Are you talking about issues? Like, how do you want this to work? And how do you market this to your supporters so that they know that these opportunities are available? Make sure, or this is a good opportunity to really show folks something about your background or about your leadership experience. We have a good number of candidates who are in the medical field right now, who are in public health, who are really using these opportunities to share their knowledge with their supporters, really helping folks to understand their area of expertise and sort of what they would add or what they currently add to the state legislature or the state of things. And so this is a good opportunity, again, for you to show leadership, for you to show or demonstrate what you will bring to your respective office. And then hopefully the new folks that you've just met online are so impressed and really believe that you will be a great addition to your respective your respective office and would want to host a future event. And so you want to make sure, again, that you mention these kinds of opportunities so that when you follow up with folks, if they're willing to host a future event, they'll let you know. All right. I saw a lot of typing happening.
Hello.
Okay. So I think Alyssa has a few questions.
Yes, it is our question and answer period. I've got some that have been coming into the chat as we go. So first, Kiana, have you seen virtual fundraising events have good results, and how do you think people should promote them to their supporters?
So that's a really good question. I mean, generally we are seeing that folks are having good results. I think, again, as we are socially distanced, we're finding that people are looking for some kind of engaging or social outlet at home. But again, you want to be creative and think about the things that your supporters would be interested in or would engage them or would attract an audience. Again, as I mentioned, like a traditional event, you really want to work backwards. You want to make sure that you can properly build an audience for an event. And so while it may seem like, again, because the timeline is shortened, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you throw an event out there, people will come. You want to give yourself enough time to send out the invitation, to build a good host committee, and to make some follow-up calls to ensure that there's a good audience there, particularly if you have a surrogate. You want to make sure that they are coming into a room with people who are super supportive of your campaign and are excited and engaged about talking more about your campaign.
Awesome. Next question is about some of the discomfort that people have around fundraising right now. Some folks are saying they're uncomfortable around call time, which hopefully you can define for our folks who are new.
Yeah.
Is it okay to shift all fundraising to virtual events, and maybe talk a little bit about why people should still be engaging in fundraising writ large right now?
Yes. Again, this is a really good question. Honestly, this is something that we talk with our candidates about pretty often, right? I think, again, we can all acknowledge that these are different times, right? But what we are finding is that people are still supportive of our campaigns. I think right now it really speaks to the need to have caring leadership, right? Folks who are responsive to the issues that we care about. And our candidates are telling us that that's what they're hearing on the phone. And so I wouldn't shift all things to fundraising event. I wouldn't shut down fundraising. But what I would do is approach it from multiple angles. So we are finding higher connect rates because people are at home. If you think of it as a check-in call and have a conversation with that person about how they are and what they're doing and pointing them out to resources, you will also get a sense of whether or not this is the person who can have the conversation about whether they can support your campaign at this point. I think, again, most folks have found there to be a pretty natural conversation about how things are going and why we need good leadership. You ultimately are the future of our leadership. And so we haven't found a lot of discomfort there in the conversations that our candidates are having. Again, I do want to say, please make sure that you're suppressing certain groups and audiences. Again, medical communities, people who work in the service industry. You just want to be mindful, again, of sort of the places and the people who might be hit in different ways by what's going on. But you should start with calling people who are familiar to you, especially those who are familiar with your leadership skills, the folks who can speak to you getting things done when you're in a place of leadership. And then remember, you can also call people or call newer folks after to follow up after an event for support. You can also send emails. And so what we have found is that our candidates are doing, an email about resources and things of that nature, or email to check in, the email to volunteers, and then following it up at some point over the week with the email about the fact that there is still an election this November, that we still need to make sure that we can hit our voters and that they know how to vote, when to vote, things of that nature. I think we all are paying attention to the news about how the way we vote may change in many of the states. And so we need to be prepared to educate the people about this. And so you just want to make sure that you have the resources to remain competitive and to continue to push out good information to your folks.
Great. We also, for our audience, we just did a webinar on doing call time right now. So we will also make sure that you have access to that video recording as well. So that will go deeper into fundraising right now and how you can approach it. Last question for now. Can you talk a little bit about how folks could reach out to people in rural areas that may not have as strong of a broadband connection, and also how they could reach out to folks who are not as familiar or comfortable with technology, such as older voters?
Yes. So a couple of things. One, you will see that people are moving to sort of some of those old school kinds of things, right? And so we have seen people split up phone lists and just call through, again, checking in and then having further conversations with them about the campaign. You'll split up call lists, you can use landlines, things of that nature. We've also been recommending to folks that if they're doing something like that, then they'll want to follow up, maybe with a postcard in the mail, so that, again, you have this other touch with this person about the conversation and about the space that you all shared. Another thing that I want to caution folks to do is to not make assumptions about whether or not people are willing to try a new medium, particularly at this time where they may be alone or they may be getting sick of their spouse or their kids and looking for a different outlet. And so what's important, and I'm really glad that we have a tech person part of this webinar, is making sure that they have good instructions about how to connect to things. We know that one of the fastest growing audiences, particularly on things like Facebook, are older people. And so even though we might make assumptions that they're not super tech savvy or that they're unwilling to learn, I think what we're finding out is that it's also the exact opposite. And if you give them clear directions, they're at least willing to give it a chance. And so I would encourage you to go ahead and give it a try as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Kiana. So we're going, thank you. We're going to move on to the next section of our webinar today, digital tech. And for that, we have yet another special guest, Brittany Kaiser. Hello, Brittany. Brittany
Hello.
is the technology coordinator here at Emily's List, and she is going to be your digital expert for today. So again, I'll be back for question and answer, and Brittany, take it away.
Hey, everybody. I'm excited to be talking a little bit about the tech options that you have for doing virtual events. There are so many of them out there, and today we're just going to talk about 3 primarily. At Emily's List, we use and therefore can recommend Zoom, GoToWebinar, and Google Meet for conference calls and events. Of course, there's a lot more stuff out there like Facebook Live and Instagram Live, among others, but we're not really going over those today. We're just going to go over these main three. You can choose which platform you want based on your budget and your conferencing needs. So let's start with Zoom. People can join Zoom meetings by phone or computer or a mix. So some can join by phone and some can join by computer. It does have a free option where you can have up to 100 participants in a meeting, but there's a 40-minute time limit and it will just kick you out after 40 minutes. Your meeting will just end. So if you think you'll do things that are a little longer, there are paid options and there are different tiers with options of 100 attendees or 300 or even more. And then in that case, you don't have a time limit. Zoom is great because it allows for a lot of host control while also allowing everybody in the meeting to participate if you want them to. For example, one of the tools is you can use a waiting room. So you can kind of keep your guests out of the meeting until you're ready for them and then let everybody in all at once. And you can also mute everybody all at once if you're getting a lot of like ambient background noise, or if you just want a portion where it's just you and a few specific people talking. It also has a really cool feature that is a breakout room. So if you do have a large meeting, like we just had one with 100 people, then we split it up into groups of like 5 so that we could do brainstorming. So Zoom is really good for stuff like that. GoToWebinar, you should be pretty familiar with this because we are using it right now. There's only a paid option, so there's not really anything free, but it has a lot of features. GoToWebinar is best if you want to have just a few people talking and an audience that is only participating through polls and questions and maybe chat. There isn't really any group interaction, so it's great if you want to keep it separate. GoToWebinar has a really large capacity. We can have up to 1,000 people on our plan, and I know that there are different plans. It also makes recording and video sharing super easy. Lastly, Google Meet. It is definitely the most casual of the bunch, and it's great for group interaction. If you already have a G Suite account, which is like an account that you would use in a business or an organization, Google Meet is based on your subscription. So if you, for example, have a G Suite basic account, you can have up to 100 people in your meeting at a time. So all 3 of these platforms, they allow for audio, video, screen sharing, and chat boxes. Which one you want to use, again, depends on your budget, what kind of meetings you're having, and what kind of audience participation you want. So now we're going to go over the features of each of these platforms. Don't panic if I'm going too fast for you to take notes, because again, this webinar is being recorded and then the recording will be sent out to you so you can reference this information later. I should also note that these platforms, especially Zoom and Google Meet, have really great support pages where they answer basically any question you can think of. I use them all the time, even though I've been using Zoom for years. So you can find out anything you need to know on those support pages. All right, so let's start with Zoom. Like I said, with Zoom, you can join by computer, phone, and even iPhone and iPad apps. If you decide to host a Zoom meeting, it's easiest to schedule the meeting beforehand. So once you log into your free or paid account, you can click a blue Schedule a Meeting button to get started. You can see it there. You just start with entering the basics of the meeting, like the name and the date and the time. You can then turn on certain options like the ones that are listed here on the right. You can allow your participants to enter the meeting before you do, which is great for more casual meetings, so everybody doesn't have to actually wait for you to get there to start chatting. You can mute all of your participants upon entry, which is great for larger meetings. And I actually do that for every meeting, no matter how many people are in there, just so we don't get any like dogs barking or lawnmowers in the background, and people can just join audio when they're ready. And then you can also turn on the waiting room. This is a great feature if you are, for example, having a team meeting and then somebody from outside of your group is going to join midway through. When that person, you can move on to the next slide, Alyssa. When the person enters the meeting from a waiting room, you will see them. As you can see there, like one person is waiting, and then you can admit them whenever you are ready for that person to come into the meeting. This feature is also great if you're meeting leaders or like your host committee and you want to have a quick chat before your meeting starts. You can let in the people that you want first, and then other people as they come into the meeting will be put into the waiting room, and then you can just admit everybody all at once once you are ready to get started. Zoom also allows for screen sharing, which is great when you want to present a PowerPoint or just share information like a calendar or a spreadsheet. When you get to your meeting, you can just click the green share button that'll be in your controls at the bottom of the screen. you can choose which screen of your computer that you want to share. Like, for example, if you have multiple monitors, you can just choose one of those screens. And you can also just choose to share one application, like just show a PowerPoint or just show a spreadsheet. Oh, and also you can choose whether or not to share your computer audio. So if your PowerPoint, for example, has a video in the middle, you can click a checkbox at the bottom of that screen there that says share computer audio. But if you don't have anything with audio, you can just keep that checkbox unchecked. So like if you have like email pings, you can just not have anybody else hear those. So when you start screen sharing, you have all the same Zoom controls, like your audio, your video, and managing participants. They just pop up kind of to the top of the screen. And when you are finished sharing, you can just click the red stop share button. It's really easy, and then your screen isn't shared anymore, and it just goes back to your normal audio and video settings. And it bears repeating, Zoom has amazing support guides that answer any questions you might have. I use them all the time. I literally will just go into Google and type like Zoom and whatever I'm thinking about, and I can find the article. All right, so let's move on to Google Meet. Google Meet, in my opinion, is by far the easiest of these systems to use. To start a meeting or to join a meeting, all you have to do is go to meet.google.com. If you have a meeting already scheduled, you can just click on it. Or if you want to create a meeting, you can click join or start a meeting. Once you've entered your meeting, for example, if you decide to just start one on the fly, once you enter the meeting, a pop-up appears that just has all the information that you can copy and paste and send to any attendees that you want to join right now. But of course, often we don't just have meetings right now, we schedule them ahead of time, and it's really easy to do that as well with Google Meet. If you just go to your Google Calendar, you can either create a new calendar event or open an existing one and edit it. Then you click the Add Conferencing button, and you choose Google Meet. The joining information then gets added to the calendar for all participants. It lists phone and video options, so people can just either dial or click on the link, and it'll take them right into their meeting. And then once you're in the meeting, the bottom has all of your controls. You can turn your audio on and off, your video on and off, and share your own screen. All right, and lastly, we just did that, GoToWebinar, which we're in right now. It has a lot of great features for large scale meetings. So if you decide to go to the GoToWebinar account, this is definitely one where you have to schedule your meetings ahead of time. So you would go into your account, logging into gotowebinar.com, and click the plus sign at the top of the page to schedule a meeting. And then you would click the schedule button. You can choose your date and your time, of course, and then whether you want an event that is live like we're doing right now, or whether you just want to make a recorded event that you would send out later. When you're ready to start your webinar, you can go to the events page and click on start, or you can click the three dots and choose practice mode, which we did right before this meeting. It lets you into your meeting before all of your participants. It's kind of like a more official version of the Zoom waiting room. Once you are in your practice room and you've tested your audio and your video and you're ready, you can click on the start webinar button on your screen and then the start broadcast, which will take you into the meeting with all the audio, and it'll start recording if you choose to record. The control menu in GoToWebinar normally opens automatically on the right-hand side of your screen. You can use all the different drop downs, kind of like the ones you're seeing now, but if you're a host, it's a little bit more robust. You can use all the drop downs to use the tools. For example, you can click sharing to start sharing your screen. Some of these only the organizers can see, like questions and sharing. Organizers can also send messages to the chat function, and all attendees can see them, which you know. So at the end of a webinar, you can just close your program. For example, if you have a Mac, like that screenshot, you would just click the red X, or if you have a PC, you would click File and then End Webinar, so it just depends on your platform. And then after the webinar, if you want to view your recording, and then if you want to send it out, you just log back into your account if you've logged out, and you click on the film icon, and there you'll be able to see all of your recordings and do whatever you need to do with them, whether it's downloading them, sending them out, etc. So one final thought, I know we flew through a lot right there. I know using new technology, especially for a live event, can be really stressful. So my number one tip is to practice using the tech in a really stress-free, low-risk environment. Call your friends, call your teammates, call your family, click on every single button and ask your friends, can you see me? Can you hear me? What's happening now? That way, when you go to do the real thing, you'll be really a lot more comfortable, and you can focus on your message and your mission rather than which button you need to figure out how to press. So I think we are good for questions now.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
So many different steps. Thank you so much, Brittany. That was so helpful. Here's another time for you guys to put your questions in the questions box that Brittany was just referring to. Here are some that have come in so far. Can a team just have one Zoom account that everyone uses?
Technically, yes. The person who is like the owner, the host, always has to be logged into every meeting though. So if they don't want to do that, you should have more than one account. And also an individual Zoom account can only have one meeting going on at a time. So if you have events that might overlap, you should either schedule them so that they don't overlap, or you should have more than one account. So you can have two events going on kind of at the same time.
Awesome. Can you talk about what kinds of events or programming you might recommend for each of the different platforms that you talked about?
Sure. So again, it depends on what kind of audience participation you really want, whether you want people to be able to chime in with audio or not. So GoToWebinar is best for events like these that maybe are like educational, where you don't want anybody to be able to just chime in, but you want to be able to take polls and questions and things like that. Google Meet is probably best for more casual events when you're okay with anybody in the meeting talking at any point and you don't really have any control over what's happening. You can still screen share and have an organized meeting. But you, again, need to be okay with people just chiming in at any moment. Google Meet is also great for one-on-one meetings, even when you want to do like video and screen sharing. So that might be better than a phone call in some cases for a one-on-one meeting. And then Zoom, I would say, is like the in-between platform because you can do really informal one-on-one or group meetings and larger meetings where you want audience control. For example, with a large group, you can decide to mute all people at once and then decide whether they can unmute themselves or not, depending on what's going on in the meeting. So that makes it a little different from GoToWebinar, because in GoToWebinar, people cannot unmute themselves and chime in, but in Zoom, you have the option to let them. And then in Zoom, people can also raise their hand, like if you've muted everyone, and you can then let them ask a question. So again, it just depends on your audience participation level and how many people you're gonna have.
Awesome. Let's see, and this last question I think I'd love your thoughts, and also I have some thoughts on it as well. How have you seen folks use breakout rooms and events in Zoom?
So personally, I kind of just learned about breakout rooms when somebody asked about them. I wish I'd been using them for a lot longer. What we did, I can think of two examples that we've done in like the past week. One was a fun event where people on our team were all getting together and just chatting. We like said hello in our big like 70-person group, and then we broke it up into groups of 3 to 5 so that we could just talk to everybody, because we all miss each other being in the office. And then we could kind of pull people back into the room and break them out again, so you would get a rotation of people. And I've also seen it used for like breaking up teams. So if you have your Zoom account, you can actually make your breakout rooms beforehand. You can decide who would go in each room, and you can kind of split that up then. So it's like, these are the people who need to talk about this particular budget thing. These are the people who need to talk about event planning. So you can have one meeting and then break it out into those little groups and then bring it back for final discussions.
Awesome. And there was a question as to which platform the breakout rooms are in. That is in Zoom.
Yes,
in addition to what Brittany laid out, I think you can also use them for some of those interactive best practices that we talked about in the beginning of the webinar. So if one of the goals that you have for your event is to build relationships between your volunteers, to have time for volunteers that live in certain districts or communities to talk to each other, you can put them in breakout rooms together. There's also a random breakout feature if you just want people to kind of get to know each other, which is a really important part of in-person events. So those are just some ways in which you can use breakout rooms for your event. And with that, Ms. Brittany, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Back into the internet. And I just have a few closing thoughts for all of you. Thank you guys so much for your time today. So let's go over some key takeaways. Like we said this whole time, digital events have opportunities and challenges. You want to plan for both. You want to be clear about your goals from the onset. You want to test your technology several times before the event, including your screen shares or your breakout rooms. We tested this webinar 4 times, as Kiana said. We had some technical glitches, and we were able to make sure that those were repaired by the time we all got on this call. So make sure that you're really spending your time testing every single aspect of what's going to go on to this event, practicing what you're going to say. It is a different platform. It does feel different when you don't have that kind of feedback of a person sitting in front of you. So please, cannot emphasize more, practice your stuff. Also, at the same time, don't panic. Technical glitches will happen. You just have to breathe, keep going, do your best, and also as an attendee, try to be patient. People are always out here trying to do their best with this technical stuff, and since we're all using the technicals right now, they can get a little busy, a little traffic heavy, and so people have been experiencing some challenges with those. And finally, find opportunities to bring interesting speakers, supporters, attendees, or topics that fit the moment and your campaign. So here is an example from Representative Sarah Innamorato. She is from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She is doing or did, I suppose, a Zoom meeting about mutual aid in her community. I thought that was really interesting, a way to connect with her community, to highlight resources in her community, and to talk about some of the ways that this crisis is impacting the people around her. The other thing to remember is that it is a very big internet. So you're going to be competing against a lot of distractions. The more interactive you make your events, the more interesting your surrogates that you bring on, the more you're able to tell people stories and really touch them on an emotional level. Those are going to be ways you can keep more attention in your program. You want to try and create questions, to use questions to create interaction. We've done that with all of you. You can use chat box features. Every platform we've shown you today has chat box features. So does Facebook Live, and so does Instagram Live. You could do breakout rooms to build relationships, and you can do verbal share outs if the group is small. So if you're having a small event and you want to hear how people do some sort of icebreaker, hear how people are doing, hear how people have reacted to something that happened, you can do that as a way of building participation in your event. And you also want to get creative. So this is just a picture of Representative Veronica Escobar from Texas doing a virtual event of her own. So you can kind of see the behind the scenes nature of all of this. But there are so many interesting ideas that you can do online right now, and new technology that's being created all the time to kind of enhance your experience. So if you or someone you know are a doctor or a scientist or a researcher, an expert in the crisis, this is touching so many different issues, that might be a person you might want to have on this call. If there's someone in the community who's experiencing the crisis acutely and wants to talk about how they're being impacted and how it is that you could help if you were elected to this office, have them speak as a special guest. All of those are ways of capturing attention and bringing people into your event. You could have a watch party. So there are apps like Netflix Party, which is a Chrome attachment. Google it. They will describe it better than I can. You can watch something relevant to your campaign as a group. You could just do some team building, depending on what your needs are. You could have a virtual text bank together. So we have a training next week on how to use texting in your campaign. Please come to that one as well. But you can not only have people text by themselves in their homes, you can also have people join on Zoom, text bank from their homes. So many of you have been to phone bank or text banks before. For me, one of the things that I really enjoy is when I have a really good conversation or I'm really struggling with something, I want to be able to look up and say, I don't know what to do about this thing that I'm dealing with. That is something that having a virtual text bank will actually allow you to do, to continue to have that kind of communal atmosphere while also being physically distant. And with that, I just want to point you to a few more resources that we have here at Emily's List. We will send you the link to all of these things in the follow-up email to this as well, but please join us at our training center. It contains so much of the information that you've heard here today and so much more. It is a resource for you in learning about your campaign and how to be successful. And also thank you to our partners in this and so many of our other trainings that really help us make sure that we are able to reach as many folks as possible. So with that, everyone, I have absolutely loved being a part of this training with you. Thank you so much for your interactivity and your questions. And we will see you at some future webinar. Thank you very much and stay safe out there.